Hey, everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. Meat Eater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew. Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's going to be there. Phil the Engineer's going to be there. Meat Eater Live, headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay, every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Arts Center in Mesa, Arizona. April 24, the Balboa Theater in San Diego. April 25, the Grove in Anaheim, California. April 27, the Crest Theater in Sacramento. April 29, the Union in Salt Lake City. April 30, the Egyptian in Boise. May 1, the Wilma Theater in Missoula. May 2, the Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington. May 4, Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon. And May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.
You're listening to the Sportsman's Nation Podcast Network, brought to you by Interstate Batteries. Now, it's that time of year where we are trying to organize and prep and plan for the upcoming season, and some of the gear that we use takes batteries. Now, you should go visit your local Interstate Battery store or visit interstatebatteries.com to check out all the different varieties of batteries that they offer. They have truck batteries. They have batteries for your trail cameras. They have batteries for your rangefinder and everything else that is electronic that you use for your hunting equipment. They have batteries for that. interstatebatteries.com. Awesome company. Check them out.
I will regret forever the crosses that I did not make with them. So
that's a good statement right there.
Yeah,
You'll never regret a cross that you did make because you can correct it, but you do regret the crosses that you didn't make from dogs that are long gone.
They're gone. Yeah. I mean, the list goes on and on. There's no other animal in the world that has to be bred to such a consistency of high caliber as what a trail hound, a big game hound, is to me, and so far no one has contradicted that statement. By the way, I mean, a show dog has to look pretty in the ring, but that's all.
And if it's legal to run hounds, you can turn your plots after them.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay.
My name is Clay Newcomb, and I'm the host of the Bear Hunting Magazine podcast. I'll also be your host into the world of hunting the icon of North American wilderness, the bear. We'll talk about tactics, gear, conservation, but we'll also bring you into some of the wildest country on the planet, chasing bear. On this episode of the Bear Hunting Magazine podcast, we're again with Plott breeder Steve Hurd of Bluff Creek Plotts, and we're specifically talking about breeding big game hounds. You're going to really enjoy this podcast with Steve. What a character. Hey, I want to draw your attention to our actual print magazine, Bear Hunting Magazine. Bear Hunting Magazine's been in print for 20 years. We're the only dedicated bear hunting print publication in the world. It's true. In Bear Hunting Magazine, if you're not familiar with it, you would see bear hunting displayed in all its majestic forms. From hunting with hounds to hunting over bait to spot and stalk hunting in the West. The black bear is an incredibly diverse animal, ranges in incredible places, and we hunt them in all different ways. In the Bear Hunting Magazine, we're trying to show the full gamut of bear hunting, and also we have lots of grizzly and brown bear stuff, and occasionally even stuff from Russia and other parts of the world. Action-packed, how-to, adventure-based, recipes, hound and bear hunting advocacy stuff, and we dedicate a lot of our life to this magazine. And you could do us a favor and do yourself a favor by becoming a subscriber to Bear Hunting Magazine at bear-hunting.com. Secondly, the second thing that you could do to help us with, hey, give us a review in iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts, like a written review. Even anything you say would be great. And also, there's those 5 stars, and I'm not trying to twist your arm, but it'd be great if we could lean far to the right on that line of stars, right in that 5-star region. But that helps us with Google and, the internet and such. Hey, you're going to enjoy this podcast with my friend Steve Hurd Colton. Welcome to the Bear Hunting Magazine podcast. We're here again with my good friend Steve Hurd, Colton Hurd, and as you heard from the last podcast, we talked about these Plott dogs that Steve has been involved with his whole life. And we had all kind of stories and all kind of history about his dad and all these. It was a super neat conversation that we had. What I want to do on this podcast, though, is let's hone down our focus to something that I think you've got a lifetime of history with, but I also think you have some unique insight. And beyond unique insight, I think that you're able to articulate a very nuanced subject that probably there's a lot of great dog breeders in the country, animal breeders.
Yes.
This isn't even just about dogs even, but I find that maybe they just aren't willing to tell what they know.
Oh,
but
I am.
but
Yeah.
You are. And no, you're able to articulate some of the things that you have done and have seen and have experienced and have had the time to evaluate.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's not just like me going out and having a litter of pups and 2 years later making big assumptions about dog breeding. But what we're going to talk about is breeding big game dogs.
Yeah, okay.
And so you wrote an article for Bear Hunting Magazine several years ago that had a lot of interest. And you know what? I appreciate somebody that's just willing to say what they think, Steve. I find that a lot of people, if they have strong opinions, they're afraid to say them because they're fearful that people will think they're being prideful.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Yeah.
Well,
but I do it anyway.
But that's not no. What you're doing to me is right. You're just saying, hey, this is what I do.
Yeah.
I've built I've done this for a lifetime. This is what I do. I'm not saying it's the best. I'm not saying it's the only way. I'm not saying it's the right way. I'm saying it's the way that I've done it. It's worked for me.
And maybe I can help guide somebody.
Yeah.
Maybe I can help guide somebody. But do it. Do it your own way if it succeeds. Okay. Now and once again, maybe some of it was some of the first of it was luck. But when I knowing what I knew from the past history of the dogs, when I made my bouncer to Donna and bouncer to Sioux Crosses, I thought, how can it go wrong when all those old timers have put all their time into this effort of breeding this kind of a dog, and then I have exactly what I'm looking for right here in front of me. So if I breed them together, surely it will turn out that way. Well, first off, if you're ever going to breed anything, which is like you say, horses, game chickens, or whatever.
And hey, your history, and we didn't touch on it last time, but you breed horses.
Yeah, thoroughbred horses.
Cattle.
I have the leading thoroughbred sire in the state of Kansas right now.
Yeah, and there's something too. Before you even dive in, because I know you're going to jump in, and that's exactly what I want you to do. I want to say that I have, when you think about breeding dogs or breeding animals, you think that you're dealing with things that are like really tangible.
Yeah.
But oftentimes it's the intangible characteristics, qualities of these animals that people that just have a knack for breeding animals understand. And by a knack for breeding animals, anybody can put a male and female together and make a litter of pups. But to breed animals that have long-term, consistent production of the qualities that you're after.
Okay, here's something I hate to say, but you have to say. You are probably born with an instinct to either be able to do it or not do it. Okay, so I believe that there's natural human beings that are, I call them master breeders, and some people don't like that term, but I believe Gola Ferguson was the first master breeder that I know of. Okay, he took a bunch of animals, and each generation got better. Okay, and I'm still using dogs from that generation, those generations of his. but first off, I have to say that you probably you may have it, the ability, you may not have the ability, but if you do have it, you have to hone it. So Colton originally started out. You just didn't want the pups that he was picking, okay? Because they're the big sloppy, the funny one, the one that you want on the porch and you want to lay on your lap or stuff. But I mean, my granddad was a great breeder of draft horses and mules and all sorts of stuff and show cattle, okay? So Colton had it in there, but he had to hone that. So
it's a craft.
Yeah. So his little eyes watched, and I thought, well, that looks kind of like Reno, and that kind of looks like Scar, and they see that look in their eye. Well, this pup here, this looks like the right pup. So he picked Buster, and that was the very first time that he passed. He passed in flying colors.
So on the previous podcast, we talked about how. So Colton's here with us. Colton is Steve's son, 21 years old. 22. And then you picked this dog Buster. So that's what he's referring to, which turned out to be a great dog. And there was the test. There was for somebody that just jumped into the podcast.
Yeah.
You said, son, do you see the same thing I see?
Yeah.
There's nine pups, and you picked the one that your dad wanted to pick too.
I think I actually used to just pick the biggest pup out of the litter. The biggest.
I
think that's
But there people do that, and then sometimes they always pick the smallest pup out of the litter. But the truth is, you need to pick the one that acts the most and looks the most and resembles the most to the best dogs you've had in the past. So that's part of it. Okay, but then breeding. You have to use the word gut feeling. In my gut, when I made those first two crosses, here I was some kid that from a good family, Dwayne Hurd, but I had a gut feeling that if I did this, it was going to work, okay? Because I had seen the Judd dog, and that's the way he was bred, and so my gut told me if I did the same thing that the other people had done, it was going to work. Well, and it did, okay? But
so you were using pedigrees,
yes, absolutely,
very much so, and you still do.
When somebody tells me they don't give a dang about a pedigree, and I would mention some very famous plot men from the past that said they didn't give a rat's rear about a pedigree, and guess what? They never bred for more than one generation. They would breed and they would sell, and they never produced 3 generations ever. And it's extreme. I've said it in my article for your magazine. It's extremely hard to breed for 3 generations and not lose what you started with, because people make bad decisions because their gut told them to do something that probably shouldn't have been done. Okay, but there's tangible deals. So many things. The color of a dog can make a difference, because that dog inherited that color coat from some dogs in the past. So were those lighter brindle dogs, were they as good as the darker brindle dogs? Well, history tells you no, they weren't. So you first off, you have to know the history of what you're doing, whether you're breeding horses, once again, or anything. And
see, that would be a little bit of a controversial thing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of people say, well, color doesn't matter at all.
Yeah, okay, but for each strain, it does. Okay, if you're going to go buy you a milk cow, and you wanted a lot of production, you're not going to go buy a Hereford cow. You're going to go buy a cow, great big white cow with big black spots on them. Okay, because you know why? That color is a Holstein, and they produce milk
it's an
better.
Indicator of something.
It's an indicator. Well, and once again, I had Dan Wagner's a good buddy of mine, and we talk genetics all the time, and he doesn't want to agree. Kind of, Dan, you'll enjoy this. But he does agree that somehow I see something that other people don't see, and there's just certain things in a dog, and there's a certain look to a dog, and if I see it, could be the color, could be a little bit houndy looking, feet might be a little bit spraddled, and that I exclude that dog from even my possibilities, okay?
Right.
And so someday down the line, since Stella died, 5 weeks pregnant to Bold. Said, maybe somewhere down the line I'm going to trip up and I'm not going to be able to find that dog that I need to breed. Although there's a lot of possibilities out there still. Okay.
Yeah.
And so it's.
What do you? If we could even dial it back, Steve.
Okay, go ahead.
What would you say the fundamentals of? And maybe that's what you've been talking about. What are the fundamentals of good breeding?
The greatest dogs I've ever seen were from the greatest pedigrees that I've ever seen, and those. And
a great pedigree means that these dogs were doing what you wanted them to do.
When you look at a pedigree, when you look at Judd's pedigree, you saw one of the best reproducers in the nation right there. You're looking at the greatest female, the greatest two females in the nation at that time were right there, and so. And they were all really related cousins to each other. So how could you not be right by attempting to do this? Now, I have made my mistakes, but I buried my mistakes. Okay, I mean, I some of those gut feelings didn't quite work out, but even then, sometimes those gut feelings I knew, I'm not sure about this, but let's give it a try. And sometimes it just flat didn't work. And sometimes you can take two dogs that are really well bred, but they share a common ancestor. My Cindy female was really hyper. Well, one time, accidentally, we made it a daughter of Cindy to a female of Cindy, and somebody thought that would be a wonderful pedigree. It looked good on paper, but I knew that if you put Cindy in there that close twice, that something wasn't going to work. So I would wish like heck that I could have talked to Gola Ferguson, because he said that with each generation. He added a high tan, kind of a black and tan, but not like a registered black and tan. But he added a high tan into his Plott family, and produced the Saddleback Plotts, which would have been North Carolina Tom and Nickel Stormy and all those. And with each generation, his dogs got a little smaller and a little darker, and eventually they were all there was no light colored dogs left in there. Okay, so. The light, there'll be a lot of people listening to this, Plott people that say, well, my dogs are light colored and they suit me fine, but they're from a different strain than what I'm talking. Okay, and if you had an Isaiah Kidd dog or a Croc-Ted or Crockett dog, they're going to be light because that's what color they were. Okay, so if you want to go catch a hog and you want a Ted or Crockett dog, they're going to be lighter colored dogs, and that I'm not taking anything away from them. I'm just saying the Weems, Bluff Creek strain, Dennis Paulson strain,
For what you were doing, your best dogs were the darker dogs.
Okay, then the color of white. I went to Plott, the MPHA, National Plott Hounds. So MPHA, about 5 years ago, and what I saw on the grounds was earth-shaking. I just saw dogs of every color. I would see one litter of puppies out of a Grand Night Champion male, and there was 7 pups in there, and there was 6 different colors of pups in the litter, and white all over them. Well, that white, some of the Plotts back in the past had some white in them, but I have a whole stack of pictures right here in front of me, okay? And if you look through them and I show you all the very best 12 and the very best 20, there's not one dog, not one single dog with excessive white on their body. A lot of them have white on their chest, but up their legs, never, not once, ever. That shows impurity. It always has. And by the way, when my dad got in, Dad loved those dogs, and he kept thinking he needed more of them. And he got several dogs from several people. I have the pictures in here, right here. I'll show them before you leave. And the ones that didn't look like Plotts did not hunt like Plotts. The ones that had the white all over them, and you just went backwards immediately. So, and there's a lot of just little teeny things that I believe makes a difference between breeding good dogs and breeding exceptional dogs. But most of it is eyesight, and a lot of it is hunting, and a lot of it is, when you send the puppies out, let everybody let you know, like your Fern female, I need to know exactly how that litter turned out, okay? And would I make that again? Of course I would. If Buster was still alive, of course I would. So
So, talk to me about line breeding.
Okay.
And because that's something that maybe a lot of people wouldn't, have steered away from. A lot of people would probably be totally familiar with it.
It was taboo. Line breeding originally was taboo. You wanted unrelated dogs. Well, as soon as you did, you just killed whatever you had. Okay, I mean, by killing, I'm talking about you killed the genetics of what you had. So then later it became what they kind of call line breeding, which you'd breed a cousin to a cousin, which means that in a 3-generation pedigree, you'd have maybe 2 dogs in there who were either brother and sister or were similar, whatever. And then all of a sudden, we found out that maybe the closer you bred those dogs, the better they did. And then we started doing inbreeding, which was, Bearpath Gunner to Becky. They were both by the same daddy, and their mothers were 3/4 sisters. And we made that cross, and oh my gosh, the pups were better than anything before. So, so when you keep adding real good stuff to the mix, it doesn't dilute the mix; it increases the chances of that mix working. Okay.
And so what people, the kind of the colloquial knowledge, I guess, if that's a good way to say it, of inbreeding would be that you'd produce dogs that were inferior in some way.
You've
probably heard people say that.
Have 5 legs and run backwards.
Or have real big health problems or
exactly,
something.
Yeah.
Let me. I would like to make a statement about that because some people have had. My uncle got a Schnauzer. They were big into Schnauzers.
Yeah.
They bought these Schnauzers and they bought them from a reputable breeder, quote unquote. And the dogs ended up having health problems when they were older. Okay. And he found out that they were bred real close. Yep. And he said, inbreeding is bad. Or, close line breeding is bad. The difference between what that breeder was doing with Schnauzers and what you guys are doing with bear dogs is that these dogs are being bred based upon performance in the field over the lifetime. And so health problems, point being, those Schnauzers were just bred to be house dogs and have these phenotype or just this external look. You guys are breeding for physical performance.
And if they don't have it, you eliminate it.
You don't breed
from the gene pool. From the
right.
Gene pool.
So that to me makes rational sense of how
and then also,
these dogs aren't physically have some problem.
And once again, back to the article. If you haven't seen the article, you really need to read it. As you breed your dogs real close, if you do have a physical fault or something shows up, then you can eliminate it from the gene pool, okay? You're harvesting off the bad genes and eliminating sometimes.
And this isn't what you're doing over and over every time.
No,
the most. I want to say that right away. It's an extreme case where you would breed as close as the Gunner Becky cross.
And I haven't done it again, but I would if
And I just want to make that clear because you're not saying you're breeding brother and sister together all the time.
No. But do not make a cross because you're afraid it's too close.
Yes.
Give it a try. Again, and once again, my famous statement is, I never regretted any cross I ever made because I could eliminate it if it didn't work. But I so desperately, I'd never bred the Judd dog to Sue, and they were half brother and sister. And I wish I would have, but people thought it was too close. And so I will regret forever the crosses that I did not make with them. So.
That's a good statement right there. You'll never regret a cross that you did make because you can correct it, but you do regret the crosses that you didn't make from dogs that are long gone.
They're gone. Yeah. Dad had a chance to take Rio Grande Trouble to Cape Girardeau, Missouri, and breed to Rag Nichols' world famous Stormy dog. It was her uncle. Most people thought it was too close, but had he have done that, it would have been the strongest bloodline cross ever made in the Plott breed, as far as I know. Okay, it would have been a Smoky Cubby on top, bred to a daughter of a Smoky Cubby onto a daughter of Plotts Fanny and Lady. It would have been the strongest pedigree of all times, and you would still be seeing it in pedigrees everywhere. Okay, so what we do. Dennis Paulson was one of the originators. I hope Dennis is still alive. I wish he could hear this. He taught me some things, stack all those good dogs that you possibly can, because what you're doing, you're filling holes in that pedigree and you're replacing a weaker dog with a really, really good dog. And when you get them in there enough, you can kind of know what's going to come out the other end. You really can.
Yeah. What about, you said something on the earlier podcast about, you've got if you want a stack of gold, you can't start with bricks and paint it. Talk to somebody that maybe give somebody some advice that's just getting started or wanting to breed a line of dogs.
Don't ever start a breeding program with dogs that are not as good as you possibly can get a hold of.
Okay, let me throw some gasoline on the fire. What if you had a dog that had a really strong trait that you liked, but he was super weak in a bunch of other areas?
You said a bunch, and that when you said a bunch, that eliminated that dog. Okay, if you'd have said one, maybe a little bit shy here. Well then,
because I think what happens is guys will get a dog that's strong in one area. He likes this dog for this one thing, but he's got weakness here, and so he'll breed another dog trying to create, eliminate the weakness, but actually he just gets more of the same.
I keep having to repeat myself, but in the bear hunting article in there, now I just forgot my train of thought. I was watching that guy clean the table.
No problem.
Start over. Back me up here. Okay.
What I've heard people say is don't breed a dog that you wouldn't want another one just like it.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, don't breed dogs just to be breeding dogs. If you like, I want another Buster. I want another Stella. And I told Colton on the way down, I've got a couple of crosses in mind, and if something works here in the next couple of months, we're going to have another one of them super crosses. Okay, and I already know how it's going to work out. Okay, but I want to produce even higher than I have produced, or at least that good. And don't ever. There's I guess you'd call it a famous strain of dogs, bear dogs, that started, and the guy's a really good guy, and he tells that he began with a female that needed corrected in this and this and this and this department, like 5 or 6 departments. Okay, and guess what? She's been dead for 25 years, and that line of dogs still needs corrected in all those.
Still has some of that same weakness.
You just, if you're lucky enough to get started with the greatest thing you can possibly find, and if you can't, then stand in line, get a pup out of what you're looking for, and then go from there. Do everything you can possibly.
So have you ever done? I mean, I guess you've done outcrossing at different times. When do you outcross? Steve?
No, you don't. You
just don't.
And once again, that'll be an argument. If we were sitting around 25 plot guys, they'll say, "Oh, eventually you have to," but no, you don't. No, when you do, why would you? If you had a bunch of dogs that we rate 9 and 10s, why would you outcross to another strain that only produces 6s and 7s?
Well, what if they produce 9s too, though, Steve?
I mean, like what? I know, but
do you know what I'm saying?
I know, but they're not out there.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but they're not. I mean, I'm saying that. I'm saying that each of us probably has our.
Well, I guess the question I'm asking is that if you had some really good dogs from another family line of dogs, and you had another totally. I mean, they didn't meet until way back. Same breed of dogs.
Yeah.
I mean, that still may not work.
Well, no, because there's. You can have pure milk and you can have pure oil. Both of them are necessities, okay? But if you put them together, what do you got? You got a mess. See what I'm saying? I mean, I'm sorry,
this is what's worked for you. We said this at the beginning, but I like hearing your unfiltered thoughts because this is the way that you've done it and it's worked for you.
Okay, if you include, I have all these pictures here. If you include Dad's dogs, we have 11 generations, okay? And with that old trouble female that got out of the crate when I was 4 years old. Well, and you told me to just speak out, and I really kind of hate to. Who can claim the same thing that for 66 years, the very first dog you ever saw is you still have that line, that very same line of dogs 11 generations later, 66 years later, that would be 6 years per strain. Nobody can say that. And by the way, we didn't have to keep jumping from one strain to another strain to another strain to try to find them. Dad started with what he thought was the best, and we bred to the best, and we still have that same line of dogs right here.
Yeah.
And they're as consistent as opening up a can of Vienna sausage. I mean, they're all just exactly.
You're gonna know what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Steve, so with your history with breeding thoroughbred horses and cattle and different things, are there parallels? Are there anything that you learned?
Well, yes. Okay. The quarter horse people finally kind of made it okay to breed real close, and nobody in the horse world. It takes too long to 340 days for a baby colt to be born from the time it's conceived. Mm-hmm. And then you got another year before you get it all weaned and, started in training. Then you have another year before you find out what it's going to do, whether it's a roping horse, a race horse or whatever. It takes so long and so much energy and so much time to you can't experiment like you can, especially with game chickens. By the way, game chickens I still keep some around just for fun. And they were the first people to really start learning how to breed animals, okay? Then the dogs, you can do that because you can get 2 litters of pups a year. But they're afraid. The thoroughbred people and quarter horse people are still afraid to breed really, really close. You just don't see it happening. And I would like to. I think I'm getting too old to do it. But what I did when I took I had a stallion named Speedy Nijinsky, and his dad was a famous horse from he won the Triple Crown in Europe, okay? Mm. And what I did was I looked for mares that were very close to him, and I took him from a slaughter truck. He was going to get loaded on hauled to the slaughter, and I made him the second leading stallion in the state of Kansas for several years, and his colts earned over $1 million, okay? Mm. And what I did was I bred 2 mares that had similar pedigrees to what he had. By the way, that would include Seattle Slew and Secretariat. Okay, they came from the same family of horses. So, using my knowledge of dog breeding, I have another stallion up there, and I'm doing the same thing. I'm trying to find. Clay got kind of tired of reaching over and pulling that thing up. We could tie that from the ceiling, but what I'm doing with him is doing the same thing. I'm trying to find mares that
So you took your dog breeding knowledge and applied it to horses,
and we're going
not vice versa.
And we have a mare right now that I'm going to preg check Monday, and if she's in foal, we're going to see just how far. I think we're going to have a tremendous horse. There's no reason for it not to. Okay, and once again, go back. Well, my Speedy Nijinsky's horse, his sister, won Kentucky Oaks, and she was purchased for $3.4 million and took over to, Arab Emirates or whatever. So we were in the right crowd at the time. But Kansas doesn't, we're not real big in thoroughbred breeding up there, and most good horses are bred in Kentucky. And once again, those people down there spend millions of dollars to breed, and they still can't produce another Secretariat. Well, a lot of people think they've produced another Bear Path Gunner, but the truth is, nobody else has, and we may never. We're still trying, okay?
Yeah.
And, of course, Colton thinks that Buster could have ran every step of the way with him, and guess what? We'll never know. And he might have. Yeah. He really might have. But they don't come by. It's not like picking apples off a tree, okay?
Yeah.
The really exceptional ones of anything are very rare,
Yeah.
And, and once again, on the plot boards, when we were doing a lot of arguing, some people say, oh, my God, the dogs are so much better than they used to be, and horses are better than they used to be. I said, well, Secretariat's record was set in 1973, all three of them, the Preakness, the Belmont, and the Kentucky Derby. They've never been touched. No one's ever run close to them. So, hey,
that is a good question that I think a lot of people ask probably on all the forums for any kind of dog is that, do you think the dogs are getting better?
There's more good dogs. There's more good dogs because people in this day and age won't keep the junk. And a lot of times people just kept junk. A lot of people just kind of like to have a dog tied out there.
Yeah.
But I don't know where to go lay my hands on another Gunner or another Stella or another Buster or another Timex of Joe Hudson's or those super dogs. I don't know where to go find one right this minute. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all hoping we have one, but if you haven't seen exceptional, you don't know how to rate exceptional. Okay.
Yeah.
That's something else that we say. Joe Hudson and I say the same thing. If you haven't seen it, you don't really know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, you think you do.
So would you say that you're trying to hold the line though? I mean, if you think about
but once again, we're producing at such a high level that each person that gets them thinks it's the greatest dog they've ever had. Once again, the jackpot, up there, Stubby, Ryan Stubblefield's jackpot is just an exceptional dog. Okay, and they're out there. There's several of that generation out there.
Talk to me about the differences between dogs in a litter, Steve, because we all know that not every dog. I mean, even a well-bred litter. Not every dog is going to be a phenomenal dog, a phenom, as they call it.
Phenom.
So you're trying to, as a breeder, one of the key things in breeding, I believe, because I've seen it in other breeders as well, is that you got to keep your eye on a whole litter of dogs.
You do.
A lot of guys in other different disciplines of dog. You might have a litter of pups and sell these pups and lose track of them, so you don't really know. You don't get that feedback. Bear hunters are very good. Big game hunters are good at keeping dogs close or keeping reports, getting reports back on dogs.
And that's important. When I sent,
and you can breed back to really good dogs. Like for instance, when I got my Fern from you, that June. Well, it was Bold and June.
Yeah, Bold and
and
June.
You ended up, keeping track of Bold and June.
Yep.
And then, Bold ended up being a dog that you wanted to breed back into. And so if you'd have just been a guy just not keeping track, you would have never known about that dog.
But when I sell a pup to somebody, they have to report in. And the truth is, if they don't, then they call me back 4 years later and say, hey, can I have another pup? No, you never did.
And that's why I text you at 11 o'clock at night all the time.
Travis Staves has always been wonderful. Travis said a lot of my dogs, and he texts me from the tree all the time. It used to thrill my mom and dad to death. I would be in New Mexico or Colorado or Utah or Wisconsin or Michigan, and call them from a tree. The dog's barking in the background, and my dad would just be thrilled to death. Mom said, "You ought to see me act like a little kid over here, you know." Mm-hmm. Dolores, they got that bear tree. Listen to this. You can hear that. Just go on. And he never got to go to a tree. Joe Hudson told me that if I would bring him up there, a year before he passed away, that he would carry him to a tree. He said, if we tree a bear, I'll carry him all the way up. So, and I wish we'd have tried it, get one of them travois or whatever the Indian people had, get him to the tree somehow. So, but once again, it's
and to go back to what I was saying, and I don't know if there's a real question inside of this question, but like differences in a litter. Like if you have 8 pups, there's going to be one of them that's this good, and 2 or 3 of them that are. Yeah,
Colton and I'm not saying Brandon, because Brandon's been living on his own for a long time, but Colton's been at home all this time, and there's an odd, and I've been asked this question: why is it that out of the 8 pups in the litter, that the 2 that you keep are always the best?
And I've seen that happen.
Well, it's because
you got Colton pick on.
Well, it's because they get to run loose on the creek. They get given everything in the world, and then I have to say it again. We don't use electricity on our dogs. We do not use it. My strain of dogs has always been wide open. Some people are telling me now that they're becoming quiet, and the reason they're becoming quiet, they can't stand that shock. They still want to hunt, but they're afraid to open their mouth because they're afraid somebody's going to bust them. You know what I'm saying? And
So what I'm hearing you say though is good. You're letting these litters run loose on Bluff Creek.
Have to be. And
so you guys are watching these dogs.
And that's why when we take them anywhere, that's why when we take them anywhere, they're always in shape. Our dogs, you'll never see them behind because they've been running loose for so long. They're slender and they're ready to go.
The very first time we hunted with Joe Janik and Bernie and Travis and all those guys, what they wrote on the plot site was, what we were so surprised about, Steve drove all night long, slept from 4 o'clock in the morning till 7 o'clock in the morning, 3 hours, got up the next day, the dog's still in the dog box, went hunting, jumped loose, and Steve's dog still ran on the front end. And they said, how does that happen? First off, they're coon dogs, and they've been in a crate all the way up here, and he gets them out, lets them potty and stuff a little bit, and all of a sudden they're leading. We took Nellie and Reno up there and put down on a bear. There was 7 trucks, dogs hanging out of every one of them, and Joe Janik led me in there, and we put those 2 dogs down. And I said, why do you want these coon dogs to start the bear? And he said, let's just see what they'll do. And I did, and he said, later when we was running, he said, by the way, we'll never see this bear. He always disappears. And later that day, we killed that bear. They ran him out of the forest, ran him up the tree. He came down 2 or 3 times, and he said, that's the first time we've ever seen this bear. We've run him, but we never could see him. And I brought those. But once again, those
so
dogs.
You're keeping dogs based upon merit when they're young. What are you looking for? Because I got to reel you in here, Steve. So, because we were talking about how, because you guys are sending out all these dogs, and people say, how do you guys end up with the good ones? You're watching them when they're young. What are you looking for? What are you looking for in a pup?
Just the best thing in the litter.
Gaminess. We talked about that often.
Yeah, everything. What your dog bringing those dead rabbits in, somebody's not shooting those rabbits for that dog. That dog's running them into a hole and getting them, digging them out and bringing them up there and killing them. But, okay, Stella's litter. Chingadero, Stella, Cinder, Michigan Todd's wonderful female. Might be one more. Anyway, at 4 months and 3 days old, I have a picture of them treed on squirrels in a blizzard. Now, I have the picture, and they're all treed, and there's about 6 inches of snow on the ground, and it's snowing hard. And they are locating a coon in the top of a cottonwood tree. So there's not a
squirrel.
A squirrel, not a bear, not a mountain lion, but a dang squirrel. Why was a squirrel out that?
And so as a breeder, you're watching.
But I'm there every day. I see.
You're watching those dogs.
On a given day, I handle my pups 10 times, 12 times. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they go with me. The best pup out of the Reno litter, out of Banjo Cindy. He got killed when he was 4.5 months old, and his name was Banjo 2. I can't believe I named a pup after his daddy already. Banjo was only 14 months old when he died, and this pup was 4.5 months old. Dad came in the driveway, brought a coon in a cage. We put it out there. The pups had a screaming fit about it. Once again, that whole litter, and they all turned out to be fantastic dogs. So when we got all done, and when Dad took out of there in the old Chevy pickup, he threw that coon in the back of that thing, and he come back in about 10 minutes, and I said, what's the matter? He said, look at this pup. He said, this pup was tied onto my bumper. He said, I drove halfway to town. And he said, this pup won't quit. Oh. And when he took the pup out, the pup ran around behind the pickup again and started baying on that tailgate of that pickup. Now, the other pups were barking a little bit, but this pup went crazy. Well, that pup tried to take a female away from a full-grown male dog and was killed right there, 4.5 months old. But Dad said, that's the next Bear Path gunner right there. So I'd already picked that pup out of that litter to be my replacement, okay? And then when he died, Reno stepped up, okay? But once again, when you get to see it, it's an unfair advantage for us to be able to do this, but that's how we're able to.
So you're not selling pups when they're 6 weeks old?
No, I just can't. I can't stand to, because how
you don't know. You don't know what you got. So you like to sell them at what? Or not sell?
5 or 6 months. Yeah.
Distribute them at 5 or 6 months.
And that's a good word for it. Yeah.
After you've watched them.
Oh yeah, because I can already tell you exactly what's going to happen. You know, I can tell you that little fern's going to start treading. She's going to start treeing and all that sort of stuff just right away. So
yeah.
Okay.
Well, and that's a notable thing with for a dog breeder to be able to do that, to be able to watch the dogs that long, and you learn so much. You know what I hear you saying is that because we're, on this we're trying to talk about breeding big game dogs, is that you've got 60 years of history, and you've noted different characteristics about these dogs.
Yes.
That
and the best ones from each generation, there were certain traits like Buster. There were certain traits that you want more of those. I want 10 more like that right there. Instead of saying, well, I guess I'll try the cross and see if I can get one good pup. That's not the way you do it. And once again, when you can't do it, then you should quit. And some people won't quit.
What the reputation that the Bluff Creek line has is consistency.
And yeah, exactly. Yeah,
like
exactly.
You get pups, even like me. Several years ago, we described this on the last podcast? But I have 2 dogs that I got directly from you, and I described my dog to a guy. And he knew it was a Bluff Creek dog, and he could have told me the same thing, and he just said, most of those dogs are going to be like that.
Yep.
And so producing that consistency is a significant thing with dog breeding.
With anything, by the way, if you can be consistent at whatever you do, if you're a basketball player and you can shoot 3-pointers consistently, that's a big deal. Instead of just saying, hey, I hit one last game. So consistency is extremely important. But once again, the only way to be consistent is to breed your dog so tightly that there's no escape tunnels. Right. There's no way of losing that stuff unless there's a freak of nature accident or something.
We can't have this podcast too without hearing you say what you're breeding for, Steve. And let me say that I believe that you're breeding for a really balanced hound, a natural balanced hound that's got a good nose, that's fast, that's gritty enough to pressure a bear, but not so gritty to get hurt by a bear.
Exactly.
That has intelligence.
And locating ability.
Smaller frame dog.
Okay. And then
I want to hear you say those words.
You just said every bit of it. So, and all I'm going to say, I agree completely. No, but you have to have. Why would you want a dog? Why would you want a dog that can't outstrike the other people's dogs and can't outrun the other people's dogs and is going to quit and come out? Or you go in and find them dead on the ground. I don't want that either. And so you want that dog to live 10 years so he can have a lot of fun with it and reproduce. You don't want a coward dog, but I want something different than a lot of true bear hunters do, and some of them just want so much grit, and they're happy about the vet bills, and I'm not. Okay, I can't be happy about vet bills because I can't pay them. Okay, so and then I just want. I just thought what I was going to try to tell you a while ago. The hardest animal in the world to raise, to me, I'm talking a racehorse has to run, a milk cow has to produce milk, a fat hog a show pig even has to just look good in the ring and then someone butchers him. But a hound who has the nose to strike cold and the brains to run a track and the ability to pick up a lose and the ability to locate and the fact that they'll stay treed for long periods of time, even under a rough tree with other rough dogs. And then when the game comes down, or if a game does come down, the grit to stop it and hold it for hours and hours and hours, the endurance to be able to run for hours and hours and hours, and the toughness for deep water, cold temperatures, rough feet. I mean, the list goes on and on. There's no other animal in the world that has to be bred to such a consistency of high caliber as what a trail hound, a big game hound, is to me. And so far, no one has contradicted that statement, by the way. I mean, a show dog has to look pretty in the ring, but that's all. He doesn't have to bark.
So there's more specific traits that have to be found in a bear dog. Okay. That's your point.
That is. Okay, and even a voice loud enough that you can hear him, and also a natural straightness.
So you got to have all these things, and if one of them's missing.
If there's one of them missing, okay, now once again, my dad did not invent that trait, and I didn't invent that trait, and Everett Weems didn't, but we knew where to go get them from the people who did, okay? And what we were lucky enough to do was get that first breeding stock, and we have been able to hold on to dogs that do everything I just told you all this time. And we didn't invent any of it, but we know how to hang on to it through gut feeling and kind of stepping outside the normal way that some people breed animals, So, but never step down, never step backwards, and think, well, I'm going to try this because this might work. I mean, try it, but if it doesn't work, please don't rebreed that dog. Just let it go.
Yeah. I'm going to try to summarize. Colton, you can help me here maybe. I'm going to try to summarize what I've heard you say.
Okay.
Is that family line breeding or inbreeding is a good thing.
If done right.
If done right, you're never going to produce traits out of a dog that it doesn't already have in it.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard you say that you've got to breed. You've got to, inside of your breeding program, you've got to have access to the best dogs of the litters.
Yes, you do.
And you've been able to do that by watching them for the first 6 months of their life, letting them run free, seeing how they respond to all the game that are running around your house.
Yep.
I mean, so you're not having to see him chase a bear to know that he will chase a bear.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely.
Well, hold on, don't stop me. Hold on. There's three.
Okay.
And then the fourth one is you can always amend a mistake in breeding by just not breeding again with those dogs, but you can never get back a dog that passes away that you never bred. You said you'll never regret.
You're right.
You'll never. The only thing you regret is the crosses that you didn't make.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right.
So
and
it
still goes.
Long periods of time too. I mean, like this is you're 70 years old.
Yep.
And you've been doing this for, been around it your whole life.
I started in 71 on my own string.
Right.
Yeah.
And so just you've got to evaluate these things based over long periods of time.
Yeah.
And
experience
I think those
helps.
four things are kind of
experience
the big
helps so much. If you're experienced seeing those dogs in the woods every day, you kind of know what you're looking for.
Well, and maybe a fifth thing too that I heard you say that maybe needs a little bit of clarification is that you are looking for physical traits. I mean, like you said,
absolutely.
Like a darker Plott is what the Bluff Creek dogs historically. The best dogs have been the darker Plotts.
They call them creekers anymore. That Joe Walker and his dad. They say, well, this looks like a creeker here. And you can tell.
So for you're not saying that the only good Plotts are black. That's not what you're saying.
No, I'm saying
you're
from my strain.
From your strain of dogs over 60 years of evaluation, the best dogs were black. So why would you?
Yeah. And you're saying black, but it's dark brindle.
Dark brindle. I'm sorry.
Brown or black.
You're
brindle.
right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So why would you breed to a dog that wasn't that and expect to get?
But once again, if you have a lighter brindle dog, then breed to a real dark brindle dog, and then keep the darker pups. Just right off the bat. When Colt went out there and sorted through that litter that day, he sorted 2 light brindle males out, and the three females.
I think there was three or four.
There was 3 females, and he sorted those pups out, and the only thing left was 4 black brindle pups. Okay, and he looked through them, and pretty soon he picked up this one. He looked at me, and I didn't bat my eyes, and he laid it back down. He picked up the next one over. He said, "This one right here." And I said, "That's him. That's the pup." He said, "I'm going to call him Buster." I said, "That's fine. You just call him whatever you want to call him." So,
well, that's I think those 5 things, and we could. That's what I'm hearing you say, which is super interesting.
Start with the best you can find. Maintain the best you can find. Never be fooled. Never, ever, ever be fooled about a dog. If your dog you think he's the greatest thing in the world, and you hunt with something that's way, way better, then you probably don't have the best dog in the world. So
Yeah. Yep.
And it's simpler. It's simpler than it seems. But most people, almost everybody, wants to change everything they get. They want to. Dog people want to change the colors, change the size, change the mouth, change this. And those old people had it perfected. Don't change anything. Don't change anything at all.
Yeah, I heard you say that one time. That you said, don't try to change your dog.
Yeah, don't. Yeah,
go get the dog that you want and then breed from there.
Yeah, you can't change your line of dogs. You just, if you get them like that. And once again, there's been some major strains that have been crossed together. That both of them were really good lines, but very few times does it improve over either one of the strains. Okay,
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And in other words, I like a little different dogs. Somebody else might have dogs that do just like mine, but maybe their dogs would be really gritty, and maybe they're spend a lot of time at the vet places, and that's just that's a day out of hunting, and that's that's just not good. Yeah. Now the dude pup that I raised, very intelligent pup out of Butch and Stella, and he's in a veterinary hospital in Idaho right now. He got caught by a bad bear, but we don't. It's really steep up there, and I'm wondering if he wasn't in a canyon. I'll find out. And he couldn't get away because he normally nips and bays for hours and hours, but he hadn't been caught that bad, but he got caught bad. So
yeah. Colton, thoughts on breeding? Final thoughts here before we close down. When you get Steve Hurd talking about breeding, you're not going to get many words in.
I think one thing that was left out too, you had asked it before when you're looking at a litter of pups too. I think that you also look for extreme brain for a dog. When you have a litter of pups sitting out there, you have some trying to eat butterflies and kind of smelling the other dogs, running around, but you kind of just have some that just kind of sit back and have that look about them, and then when you have them all together and stuff, and there's just certain things that you look for, like that show intelligence of a dog.
And that's Buster, what you get by evaluating them.
When I looked at Buster's litter, Buster you didn't see him doing anything goofy, but he just looked straight at you, just like he was ready for hunting. When you turn him loose,
business.
When you turn him loose, and we were getting ready to turn him into a bear tree, he wasn't sniffing dogs, he wasn't barking at random stuff.
That's good, Colt. That's good.
He wasn't sitting. He was focused, extremely focused on bear, and that's what sets him apart. So,
yeah.
So I think brains has an extremely big impact on when you're picking out the right dog out of a litter. So
yeah, that's good, really good.
Yeah, it is.
Well, closing thoughts, Steve.
Well, thank you for having us. I enjoy talking, and I once again, young people or even old people that are in the need for something really special, should know that there are still places out there to get it. I'm not just talking about at Bluff Creek, Protection Kansas. I'm talking about there are still people out there that are raising really good dogs, and don't, just because you can get something for $50 don't mean you should go get it for $50. Try to find, if you really want something good, expect to go meet somebody and then ask a lot of questions. But there's still people out there producing really good dogs, and everybody deserves a really good dog. If you deserve a good dog, then go find it, and it's like when you got Fern. Okay, you guys deserve you and your family. I thought you deserved a really good dog, so I sent you a really good dog, and she turned out to be that way. That's just the way she turned out to be. That's what she was supposed to do. And then Todd Boswell up there. He showed me some pictures on the Plott News site, and there was a lot of off-colored dogs, and I made a little comment. I said, where's the brindle in this picture? And he was not very happy with that, and he said, well, I'll be honest with you, I can't find one that I like, okay? So I sat there, and I thought, that's not right. So I called him, said, Todd, I got a pup. I said, it's out of Nellie and Reno, and I'm going to send you this pup. Well, how much? I said, I'm giving it to your kids. Well, I don't know. I guess so. And I sent it up there, and he still calls me. He still says, Mr. Hurd, I am so indebted to you. I am so indebted because my kids and me finally got to see what everybody else was talking about. And he said, I can't go into stories because I got a lot of friends. I can't tell you what all I've seen, but he said it's incredible. So that's Stella's litter, okay? And God, I wish I had them back. Mercy. So anyway, I don't want to get teared. I don't want to get teared up here. So anyway.
Yeah, great. Well,
yeah.
Thanks again, guys, for
thank you.
For meeting me
Thank
over
you
here.
for driving all the way out here. And,
This has been super fun, and I just want to reiterate too. I said it at the beginning. I'll say it again. I've seen a lot of people in the hound world that are afraid to just say what they think because they're afraid it'll come across as arrogant or like they know it all. Man, it does no good to if you're trying to have a conversation for somebody to hold back, and you're not afraid to, and you're not saying. And
okay, I can't lie to you, so there's no reason for me to tell you something I don't believe. And the truth is, everything I told to you, I do believe, and it has gotten me through so many generations. And I hope for at least two or three more. I've got to cross a special cross.
And here's the thing too: is go ahead.
I've got a special cross coming, and I hope it works. I think we're going to use the last semen of the butch. Last straw of the butch semen, and we got a female out of Stella. I don't have her, but we're going to get her back, and I think we're going to have another one of them super crosses.
Excellent.
Okay?
Well, and here's the thing that I want to say too is that I could have another. There are other guys that have had long-standing strains of dogs that have had success, tremendous success,
and they did it their own way, and they're allowed to.
They might be sitting here and say something slightly different.
Yep.
They may hear this and say, "Nope, that didn't work." For me, what he said.
Exactly.
And so people have the right to hear this information and evaluate it and take what works for them. What you're saying has worked for you.
That's what it worked for me. Yeah.
It worked for you.
And I'm just telling you, that's how I laid it out. And I studied one dog and one pedigree, and I'm still here from 1971 till now. From laying there on the floor, Brandon you were born in 70. Okay. So he was just a little teeny baby when I did all this. And it's still, after all these years, from that one old dog taught me that much. So keep your mind open and learn what you can. It worked for me. So
it worked. We might name this podcast "It Worked for Me."
There you go.
With
Well,
Steve
dude, that's
Hurd.
cool. I like that. That's cool.
Yeah. Well, hey, as we always say at the end of the podcast, keep the wild places wild because that's where the bears live.
Exactly.
And then if it's legal to run hounds, you can turn your Plotts after them.
That's right.
Okay. Good deal.
All right.
Hey everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. Meat Eater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew. Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's going to be there. Phil the engineer's going to be there. Meat Eater Live headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay? Every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Arts Center in Mesa, Arizona. April 24, the Balboa Theater in San Diego. April 25, the Grove in Anaheim, California. April 27, the Crest Theater in Sacramento. April 29, the Union in Salt Lake City. April 30, the Egyptian in Boise. May 1, the Wilma Theater in Missoula. May 2, the Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington. May 4, Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon. And May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.